Hello, my name is Kai, and I am a bit of a rambler. I like to travel, learn, and tell stories. And today I'm going to ramble on. What's been going on? I've been watching Oishinbo, which is this really old anime, relatively. It's from the late 80s, but the images of the food are beautiful, but much more importantly, they really focus on the step-by-step instructions and the necessity of fresh, well integrated ingredients. Like if it's seasonal, and I think I just read about this. Shun, I think. Shun. Shun. And it's like eating the freshest foods for the season. This show, Oishinbo, is really focused on that. Eating the best foods for the season and the most complementary foods with each other, and how each ingredient makes the dish what it is. And it's really interesting because the whole show, each show, is about one point. So the entire show might be about tomatoes and how you can get the best tomatoes, or sashimi and how the cut makes a difference, when the fish died makes a difference, the temperature of the water. They just get super nitty-gritty detailed about all of these different things. And I really like that. It's a really fun show. There are a lot of them. It only ran for 5 years. Well, that was a super long time, 40 years ago. And it's really interesting because now it's 40 years later than the show started, almost 35-ish years, 40 years. And they have things like whaling that I didn't know about, that Japan had regulated the whaling industry before this show even started, back in like 85, and this show started in 88. So before all the Save the Whales campaign was even a twinkle in the eye of the activists in the United States, Japan had already regulated the industry, so you couldn't hunt any endangered species. You could only hunt the completely non-threatened species and harvest a extremely small amount, like 0.5% of the population. And so every now and then they would mention these things that I'm watching the show almost 40 years later that is very interesting to see, because they say, if this happens, this industry is going out of business. This local food or craftsman industry, something like that, will go out of business if this whatever is built. And one of the recent episodes I saw was about an airport on an island, Naha. So the Naha airport, and when the show aired, there was just a local pushback against this new airport being built because it was going to completely ruin the freshest clams in Japan, according to the show. And the show ends with them successfully stalling, or really canceling, the building of this airport. But I'm watching this 35 years later, and 30 years later, they did build this airport, the Naha airport, and it is right in the place that was in the show. So I'm watching it, the super delicate clam ecosystem, and I looked up Naha Airport and the ramifications of building this airport in Japan. They were like, there's a bunch of activist groups that are complaining that it's ruining the seafood ecosystem. So the show is pretty prescient and eco-aware of the ramifications of a lot of industrial building and technological advancement impinging on like the balance of nature and all that kind of stuff. And it's talking about all this back in 1988, 1989, and 90. It's just fascinating to see, especially now that I'm a generation later, and a lot of these things they were warning about did happen. They're like, if that airport gets built, this clam and the coral reefs, especially the coral reefs off the coast of Naha, will be demolished or devastated. And then now it has happened. Now it's crazy seeing 35 years later now, and that happened. The airport finally got built, and it did devastate the reefs off of these Japanese islands. So it's kind of a bummer, but it's also pretty fascinating to see. I'd rather it not be fascinating and not have them devastate the coral reefs with a new airport. That frankly doesn't seem entirely necessary for the region of Japan that it's in. Oh my gosh, I haven't talked about this incredible development. There is a grocery store in this town. I didn't talk about this already? Maybe I did. If I did, I'm sorry, but I have to say, it is insane. My host, the Airbnb owner of the house that I'm renting, I asked him, is there a grocery store near me? And he said, no, there's only 2 convenience stores, and the nearest, grocery store or supermarket is at least a couple train stations away. And I said, okay. And for a week, I was walking around this town, just like, well, it's really cool to be living in a tiny town. I do wish there was a supermarket, because I love the supermarket sushi and sashimi and eel and all sorts of just tasty prepared meals they have at Japanese supermarkets. But also just at least a supermarket is a place to walk around, like a place to go. The neighborhood I'm living in does not have much. That said, then I'm walking off the mountain near midnight and I see shopping carts in a building and a public restroom attached to the side of the building. And I was like, wait, that looks like that supermarket I know about. But it's in my town. And I was told there are no, grocery stores, I should say, not really a supermarket, but there's a grocery store. And I went up and there is a grocery store. And they had the shelves for the sushi and sashimi, and they had the shelves. And so I went back the next day, and I've bought kimchi there. I bought a billion things of sushi and sashimi. I've bought confectionaries and mochi, all sorts of stuff. What I am the most excited about, of course, is the sushi and sashimi. They have salmon and tuna and sea bream and squid. Not a huge fan of the squid here. For some reason, the squid is really creamy here, which I guess is part of fresh squid. It's not even oily. It's weird. It's just like a cream that comes out of fresh squid. I don't like it. But the salmon and the tuna have been very tasty. I've been enjoying those a lot. And I think they've been incredibly fresh sometimes, especially the salmon. The salmon has just been really easy to bite through. The tuna, I've got a couple good ones, but then the maguro gets really stringy and tough a lot of the times. But they have sushi rolls that are weirdly big. They're like Korean bibimbap. Oh, wait, bibimbap? Gimbap? Is that the Korean sushi? Very large rolls, which I don't remember from Japan, so I don't know if that's a new thing where they make large, flat sushi rolls instead of small, dense sushi rolls. And I did talk to a local, and he said it's weird that they're bigger too, so I don't know. But there is a grocery store, and it has changed my stay, because now I can just walk up to the grocery store, I can get sushi and sashimi whenever I want. Often it's very good. I've tried all sorts of different ones. And they have great beer. They have this really tasty seltzers too. I've been drinking a lot of seltzers in Japan because every year I come back, they've always had a couple seltzers, but they're usually quite sweet. And finally, this trip, I found a few different brands that make seltzers without a bunch of sugar in them. They're just a little bit of lemon and then some vodka, whatever. I got some whiskey highballs. Those are incredibly popular in Japan, but they're not my favorite just compared to regular alcoholic seltzers. And my favorite ones have an actual fresh lemon wedge inside the can. So they make it, then put a lemon wedge on top of the seltzery booze, and then can the top of the can, which is great. So I pop open the top. Oh, and it's wide mouth, which I really like. So you pop open the wide mouth, you have just an open can, and then there's a fresh lemon slice in there. So I'll get a thing of maguro, a thing of salmon, and then maybe a piece of sushi or some quail eggs, and have a great lunch, have a great little picnic in different places with one of those lemon alcohol seltzers. Delicious. Just fun soda, a little bit of lemon, and then with like great sushi. So in Japan, if you don't know, Japanese supermarkets are great with sushi and sashimi. It's not going to be the best you've ever had in your entire life, unless you're not familiar. It could be. They're very good. That's the great thing about Japanese supermarkets. Each supermarket has sushi experts, like sushi guys, and they go to the Tsukiji or other fish markets in the morning. They get the fish, and then they truck the fish all over Japan once or twice a week. And you can get, if you know the days they do it, which it's easy to tell because the discount stickers get higher discount each successive day. So it seems like there's like 2 or 3 days. I know it used to be once a week, and I'm sure it's different for different supermarkets, but regardless, they'll get the sushi and sashimi freshly delivered at least once a week, and then they freeze most of it, cut off the thing they're going to use that day, and put out pieces or trays of sashimi and sushi in the supermarket. And after 3 p.m., 4 p.m., at some places it's like 1 p.m., they start discounting the sushi because they have to sell it by the end of the day. They can't keep it and like freeze it and then sell it again. It'll taste terrible. No one wants to eat that. Also, Japanese people take a very huge pride in the freshness of their ingredients, and they like all consider themselves foodies. So you can't, if they resold old fish, there would be a public outcry. So that's what's great. They have, each restaurant sends out their guy to the fish markets. They buy the best fish at the best price they think, and then they truck it to all that supermarket. So the one near me is an akopu, a co-op, and they receive their salmon and their maguro and their sea bream and everything. Maguro is tuna, but fresh tuna, so it's a bright red color. And each day they cut off a little, and it's served fresh and then thrown away at the end of the day. But so even if it's served fresh it's cut fresh every day, even if they have to freeze it that day. I don't think it's always fresh every day. I know it certainly felt like some of them have fresh sushi every day when I used to go. I don't know if it's just where I am now. But in any case, I've had great salmon and maguro sashimi and sea bream. But I'm living near the highway here, so I can only record now, which is 3 a.m. to 4 a.m., like midnight to 4 a.m. times. So I go to bed, and then I wake up, and it's the afternoon, and I just walk over to the supermarket at 4 p.m., get it with a little bit of a discount. But that's fantastic, because that means I get a little bit of discount. It's still fresh from that day, and I get to eat sushi and sashimi every single day that I want to. It's fantastic. So, Japanese supermarket sushi and sashimi, I love it. I was floored. I was so surprised. I was walking down this little street back to my house, and I was like, man, maybe this town is a little too small. Maybe I should have got closer to the city, because if there's not even a grocery store, I can't get sushi and sashimi, and I can't easily go to the public baths, the Sento, which I love. And then I was coming off the mountain, and I saw a freaking grocery store. And a beam of light shone down from the sky, and I started, and I was so happy. And it's proved everything that I wanted. There's a little bit of beer. There's some baked goods. There's amazing sushi and sashimi every day. There's some kimchi and the noodles and all this stuff. Rice is expensive. I should bring this up. Rice is super expensive in Japan now. I read about this somewhere. I can't remember, but I was shocked at the price. It's like half a kilogram, or about 1 pound of rice, is $10 in Japanese supermarkets right now. And I heard about this rice shortage that was hitting Japan, and it's making it really difficult for Japanese people to eat rice. But I didn't know it was this crazy, because for 1 pound of rice, that should be $1. A pound of rice should be like 50 cents, $1, something like that. That's what I remember. I remember the really fancy stuff being like $4 a pound for rice. And now the economy grade rice, I don't even know if they have the nice stuff. Actually, I saw one pouch of nice rice, but the economy grade stuff here is at least $10 a pound. So that's a wild explosion in price, and it must be hitting a lot of locals hard because they do, it's a stereotype for a reason. Japanese people eat rice. They inhale that stuff. That's their staple. That's the main grain that they build the rest of their dishes around. So all of a sudden having to pay 5 times, 10 times as much as they did a couple years ago for the same main ingredient to all of their dishes, that was truly shocking to see. I stood in front of the rice aisle in the supermarket here for like a long time, for 10 minutes, trying to figure out, like I was translating everything. I was like, maybe they mean like 5 bags is $17 US, because this doesn't make any sense to me. But that's it. It's just rice is crazy expensive now. In Japan, I talked to some locals and they were just like, yeah, it sucks. Rice is way too expensive now. Now, it's still cheap in terms of like you can get a big bag of it for those $17, whatever. That's going to last you a long time. It's just way more expensive than it was just a couple years ago, or really like 3-5 years ago. But that's a very fast. Imagine if you bought you went to Subway and got a sandwich for $10 and you're used to that. And then 2 years later, all Subway sandwiches are $50 each. It's just quite an explosion in price. And I was pretty surprised to see that in the supermarket. So Japanese towns, I've been climbing some mountains and walking around a lot. And I love the way Japanese towns look. And yeah, I just think they're beautiful. Like, I like the architecture, but it's funny from far away, it doesn't look amazing. It doesn't look spectacular, I should say. It's not so intricate and amazing when you're, 100 meters away. You can see the sloping roofs and you see the ridges, and there are decorations in the corners and the center, and it looks interesting, but it doesn't look awe-inspiring, or it's not something you're like, wow, that must be an amazing town. But the closer you get, the more details there are. And more than that, rather than just the details, the more well put together everything seems, the closer I am. So from far away, when I'm hiking these mountains and I'm getting into town, the towns look nice, but look mostly normal. They look like how you would expect a town to look. But the closer I get to the buildings, then I'm like, oh, the wood paneling is locked together very well. And the roof tiles, there's not a single roof tile missing. And at the corners, at the middle part, the onigawara, the sort of special guardian tiles and statues they place at important parts of the building, those are intricately carved and they're extremely well maintained and they're clean, very importantly. They're not covered in bird crap and whatever, they're clean. And that struck me when I was climbing a mountain recently, that how as organized as everything is in Japan, the towns look very pretty, but they don't really stand out until you get a little bit closer and you can see, oh wow, every single tile is in place and every single corner of the house has an onigawara, or the fish guardian, preventing a house fire. It's really nice being back in Japan again. I'm having a good time. But I thought that was so cool that I had been walking around the town just looking at how cool and together all these houses looked, even though a lot of them were abandoned. And then when I got farther away, I thought, oh, it just looks like a nice town. Nothing's really standing out. But when you get closer and you see all of the details and all of the precision that goes into the cultural, traditional precision that goes into how they build their buildings, I think things get a lot more interesting when all the organized details come into focus. Okay, I gotta go back to the supermarket because it's crazy. How does the owner of the house I'm renting not know there's a grocery store in this town? I've been thinking about that. Like, Does he not live here at all? Which I am thinking that is it. He has not lived here in years and doesn't realize what is even in the town anymore. And he's just renting it out and maybe pays utility bills. But other than that, he just never lives in this town because it's clean. It's very well taken care of, but the closets are stuffed with crap. And it looks like they packed everything up and hitched a ride out of town. Like it has this abandoned feel to it. And when I showed up in this house, I was like, oh, this is why they have movies about the ring girl. Because it's terrifying to be in one of these incredibly quiet houses with steep stairs and like all this stuff. But I thought it was so weird because I checked after I found the grocery store, and I'm so happy I did. I was so surprised that my host had told me there wasn't one. And I checked the message like multiple times, just like, did I misread? Did he mean something? But he was speaking English, and his English is pretty good. So he just weirdly told me that there's no grocery store in this suburban neighborhood when there totally is. Like, not a long way, maybe a 10-minute walk away from the house. But he's very clear. There's no grocery store. There's only 2 convenience stores. But there's a grocery store. There is one. So I thought that was bonkers. And then recycling, he sent me this thing a few days later about recycling, and there are the recycling cages. So they have like a metal cage because there's like raccoons and whatever. There's critters there's tons of birds in Japan. And they let the animals, they don't cull animals anymore anyway. They're very respectful of nature in Japan. But so they build like trash cages, and the whole neighborhood puts their trash in the one trash cage, and then the garbage truck can just go by there and pick up, 20 houses worth of garbage instead of going to every single house, which when you think about it is incredibly inefficient. But I didn't know where to throw away my trash, and I was going to ask my host, but my trash wasn't full yet, so I hadn't. And then he sent me a message just as my trash was getting full and said, oh, I forgot to tell you, put the trash here. And he just sent me a map with an X marks the spot on it, and then a picture of the place I was supposed to put it. And it was really weird because it was just a parking spot. Like, it wasn't one of these trash cages or anything. It was just a parking spot of a house. And I don't think he's messing with anyone, but I don't know. That's where I've been leaving the trash, and I guess that's what you're supposed to do. He also told me not to throw away any cans, like not even to worry about recycling the aluminum cans because recycling is very difficult in Japan. So just leave all of the cans in the recycling can bin, and then he'll take care of it after I move out. And I was like, oh, that's so nice of him not to think that I'm drinking 30 cans of beer every day. Joke's on you, buddy. Also, this lends credence to the theory that the owner of this house has not lived here in years, because twice a week or 3 times a week, the grocery store I mentioned that he doesn't know about has recycling can, like recycling net bags, woven net pouches, big recycling bag center that you can throw your cans and bottles into and get rid of it quite easily at the grocery store. So you just take your cans up there and you can throw them in there. There's also vending machines all over the town, and most vending machines in Japan have little circular, like little trash cans specifically just for cans. And if you have a couple, you can just throw them in there. That's what they're for. But yeah, so I just don't think this guy has lived in his house for a long time, because he doesn't know about the grocery store, and then he doesn't know about the fairly straightforward recycling center near the grocery store, or right outside the grocery store. How crazy is that? No, there's no grocery store, and then I'm walking around town and I find a grocery store. Oh, whatever. Let's just look at the good side. I get fresh, tasty Japanese sushi and sashimi every day now, and boy, has that been great. So one of the first, it might have been the first day actually I found it. I went back the next day because I found the grocery store at the end of the day, so most of all the sushi was already gone and sashimi. So I went back the next day and I got sushi and sashimi. And I went out and just ate it right in front of the store. And there was a little cigarette like tray, or they have like cigarette cans where no trash you can throw into it, but you can throw your cigarette butts. And I sat down, I had already opened, started eating things because there was a lady. So basically there's like a small table and a couple chairs set up outside the supermarket where I got my sushi and sashimi. And there was this old grandma sitting at one end of the table, so I politely sat at the other end of the table. But then I realized she was probably sitting there because I was now sitting next to the cigarette trash can. And we talked a little bit, and then there was that recycling can center, or little recycling can bags outside of the supermarket, and there was a helper there. And the grandma that I was sitting next to, she wanted to talk to me in Japanese, and I was like, oh God. And then the helper near the recycling cans, like she wanted to try and help me in Japanese, and it was very nice and she was very sweet, but I just kept trying to express like Japanese bad. Sumimasen, nihon no hedate. Tashi no nihon no. And I just kept like saying like it's really bad, but I did end up talking to the old grandma a little bit, but I was eating this really good sushi next to a cigarette trash can, and Japan does not have many places that are offensively odored. So the fact that I was next to this cigarette trash can was really messing up my tasty breakfast. And the one thing they were like, sushi, nihon no sushi, oh, nihongo, sorry. But they were like, nihon no sushi suki desu ka? Like, do you like Japanese sushi? And I was like, daisuki desu. It's my favorite. I love it. And it was still good, but I never ate at that table again because it's next to a cigarette trash can. But man, I talked to that Japanese grandma for a long time, for probably like 40 minutes, because she kept asking me questions, and then I couldn't eat because I was trying to translate and remember the like 4 words I know that I can put into order so I could answer her. And then she'd be like, oh, I'm sorry, eat. And I'd be like, okay. And I would eat, and then she would say something else, and I'd have to translate all over again. But it was fun talking to her, and I have got better because I have been studying every single day Japanese, and I feel pretty good about what I've been speaking lately, which is nice. And then I helped that old grandma. A taxi finally showed up for her way later than she thought it was going to. She said it would be like 10 minutes, but it ended up being, 45 minutes or something. And I carried her boxes to the car and put them in and helped her out. And it was just a nice little interaction. And then the helper next to the recycle cans area of the supermarket, like I talked to her a little bit, but I have no idea what she was saying except salmon is very good. She said that a bunch. And the grandma kept saying, subarashi, because I translated like, I usually backpack through Japan. I really like Japan. I like the sushi and like hammock camping across the country. It's very beautiful environment. And she kept saying like, oh, subarashi. And I was like, I know that word. And I couldn't remember it, but subarashi just means awesome, or that's so cool. That's so cool. Awesome. Something like that. And when I poked it into Google Translate and found out, I was like, oh, subarashi, yes. Nihon wa subarashi. Like, Japan's awesome. And nihon no sashimi subarashi. And yeah, it was good because I knew that word, and it was good to get it back in my head because it's still like a lot of people say that, subarashi. It's a very Japanese word. It's like if you imagine an old Japanese grandma like clapping her hands when you tell her you did something, and she's like, oh, that's awesome, great work, but not mocking, like genuinely like, amazing that you can do that. Subarashi is kind of like that. She's like, subarashi, that's so cool that you're doing that. You know, the only weird thing being back here, like Japanese old people in general seem much healthier than US American old people, like every single country in the world almost that I've been to. But being in Japan now, compared to Southeast Asia and China, Japan's old people, well, China's kind of included in that. Yeah, there are some debilitated Chinese people as well. But the thing is, now I'm in Japan, I don't see any old people exercises. And in China, and especially in Southeast Asia, there's no like disabled, invalid, old people in public. They're not going around in public. And there's really not many of them in China either. And they dance. They do Tai Chi, or they do the square dancing circles, or yeah, they do some kind of exercise. And in Japan, I've seen a lot of old, like in the US, super bent over spines, old people tottering around, old Japanese people, and they're so reserved and quiet and polite here. I'm wondering if that's actually not letting them exercise as much as they should, because there are also not many exercise machines in Japan, and that's true across all of Honshu and Shikoku that I've seen, the two of the main islands in Japan. Whereas if you're in Southeast Asia especially, but also China now, there are exercise parks everywhere. Like, there's always an exercise machine around. And I do love Japan. I love so many things about it, but I think it might be healthier if they somehow integrate exercise into part of their public culture as well. It's certainly a part of their private culture. There's kendo and there's meditation, like for health. There's a lot of healthy practices in Japan, but there's not a public exercise culture as much outside of running and cycling. There's no push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, exercise equipment at every park in Japan, and there never has been as far as I've seen, and I've been in a lot of Japan. I mean, I've seen a couple. I'm saying that, but I honestly can't remember any. But if you go to China or anywhere in Southeast Asia, many of the parks have specific exercise equipment, so you can do some exercise in the park. Like if you happen to be in the park, just do a couple sit-ups that day, or a pull-up, or just hang from the bar. And there's not a lot here, and there are a lot of what look like to me very physically incapable people here in Japan. And I didn't notice that the first few times I've been to Japan, but it's really striking me this time how many Japanese elderly look like US elderly. Very bent over, swaying side to side, very difficult for them to walk and move around. But you know what? Let's end on an up note. I've been watching that show I talked about, Oishinbo, and I've watched it a lot. I'm like halfway through now, I think. I've watched 60 or 70 episodes of 140 or 50 episodes, something like that. But they always have the same theme song, and they go, dong, dong, da-na-na-na-na-na, and she sings, dong, dong, but she says dong, dong between several of the lines. And it's really fun late at night when I'm drinking beer after recording this podcast or something, and I'll watch an Oishinbo and the theme song, dong, dong. And I've been watching a lot of them lately, so I've been walking around my house just shouting, dong, dong, and then kind of giggling to myself. It's also funny because it sounds a lot like the Rickroll song, Never Gonna Give You Up. The first like 5 or 6 chords of the ending credits song, it goes like da 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 da, but da 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 da, never gonna give you up. So every single time I watch an Oishinbo episode, I hear I think I'm gonna get Rickrolled, and of course I don't, because that was made decades earlier. But it's really fun to hear it every time. And now I've been also singing, besides dong dong, I've been singing Never Gonna Give You Up, like walking around my house singing that song, which has been a whole lot of fun. And this has been a whole lot of fun. Thank you for listening. I hope you're having as much fun as I am having. There is more to listen to. I will talk to you very soon. Have a great rest of your day. And yeah, thank you again for listening.